Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. It is the 33rd day of the war with Iran. Here's where things stand. As gas prices soar past $4 a gallon and Iran continues their attacks across the Gulf and effectively controls now one of the world's key waterways, with 13 United States service members dead and hundreds injured, Donald Trump has chosen tonight to finally address the nation about the war in Iran. We do not know exactly what Donald Trump will say to the country, but we do know this. He will address the country in a moment when his political coalition is falling apart, in a moment when some of the highest profile MAGA media voices have more than defected. Some of them are questioning whether or not he can take in information. He will address the nation at a moment when the American public in very large numbers has made clear that it does not support the war in Iran. This is the backdrop against which Trump will make his first comments, his first address to the nation. His polling is reaching devastating new lows. The CNN poll out today shows Trump's approval rating on the economy is just 31%. That is a full 8 percentage points lower than it was in January. It is likely caused by the economic tailspin the war has sent the world into. Donald Trump also faces an erosion of support from within his own party. That is something that doesn't happen very often. A new poll from YouGov shows that support for the war with Iran has fallen to 62% among Republicans. The GOP's approval of how Trump is handling the war has dropped precipitously from 81% to 68%. When it comes to a decision to put boots on the ground, men and women of the military on the ground to fight in Iran, there is 30% support for that among Trump's party, among MAGA Republicans. According to a poll released earlier this week, only 8% of all Americans support placing the men and women of our military on the ground for a ground invasion inside Iran. Despite all that, despite the fact that solid majorities of Americans here on Day 33 have evaluated the situation and decided they do not support it. They do not support an escalation. They do not support sending in ground forces. There's brand new reporting in The Atlantic that says this, quote, military officials are planning for 2 potential ground assaults in Iran. One on Karg Island, the hub of the country's energy industry, and the other to seize enriched uranium to hobble Iran's nuclear development program. That's according to 3 people familiar with the matter. They just need the go-ahead from Donald Trump. They add this, quote, putting troops in Iranian territory would rank among the most dangerous missions of either of Trump's terms. Now, looming over the possibility of sending ground troops into Iran is the fact that so far, virtually none of what Trump has said he wanted to achieve or promised would happen has been accomplished. New York Times sums it up this way, quote, Trump has yet to fully achieve many of the goals he set out to achieve when he entered the conflict, including ousting the theocratic government in Iran and ensuring that it could never achieve a nuclear weapon. Nor has he resolved problems created by the war, including the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the increased regional instability caused by Iran's missile attacks on neighboring countries. Donald Trump addressing the nation at a political low point for him is where we start today. Former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, Ben Rhodes, is here with me at the table for the hour. Senior political analyst, contributing host on Pod Save America, host of the podcast Runaway Country, Alex Wagner's here. Also joining us, Paul Rieckhoff. He is the host of the Independent Americans podcast, the founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America. I start with you. Ground troops and the debate about whether or not to send them in and the reading off the poll numbers can sound like a data point, right? But it is real life stuff, the men and women of the military and their families.
Yeah, I think when you think about this address tonight, which I think is Trump's attempt to try to snatch the microphone back and try to shove the narrative down the country and the world's throat, I think you have to remember that military families are watching. And their sons and daughters, their husbands and wives, their kids are in harm's way right now. 50,000 of them, whether or not he announces or says he's going to put boots on the ground, which could endanger 10, 20,000 directly into the ground. You know, there are over 50,000 in the region, and some of them have been gone for months. And they're watching the television to see what's going to happen to their kids and their family members. And that's very, very personal and something Trump doesn't do very well, to say the least. One thing that I continue to underscore to show how they don't really have a comprehensive plan, they're asking for $200 billion for the Department of Defense. They haven't asked for anything for the VA. So when they bring home a new generation of veterans from Iran, where's the money going to be? How are they going to take care of them? If you have to put forward the cost of war, you have to put forward the complete cost. And I think that's just one hole in his plan that seems to have more holes by the day.
What is your sense of what we're doing in Iran?
I mean, I'm following the bouncing ball like everyone else. I mean, I've said this to you for months that he wants to just keep going. He wants forever war. He's all gas, no brakes. And I think an important question for the country and for the Democrats especially is, we know he doesn't have a plan. What's your plan to stop him? Because he's already said he's not going to stop with Iran.
What could they do to stop him?
They could deny the funding on $200 billion. They can shut down the government like they did over ICE and like they did over health care. They can turn it up a couple notches and I think really emphasize that they're serious here. I think the American public is ready for action. They're seeing $4 gas prices, which no matter how much he talks tonight, he can't change that. And I think it's a moment for unity. And there's an opportunity for Democrats, and I always obviously look for independent voices as well, to seize the counter narrative and offer an alternative strategy to slow him down. But he just wants to keep going. He's already talking about Cuba. He's now floating the idea of Colombia. And he's also talking about stateside deployments. He's talking again about New York City and about Chicago. And I keep saying the most important story in the world is that Trump can do anything he wants with the most powerful military the world has ever seen, not just overseas, but here at home. And so far, nothing is stopping him, including poll numbers. He doesn't care about poll numbers. He keeps going. And the question for the rest of us is, what are we going to do to stop him?
I mean, I think that the idea that he doesn't care about poll numbers, I think is true, Ben Rhodes, but there's someone around him that cares enough to have scheduled tonight's address to the nation, because there's no development in Iran on the ground that we know about. There's no development in the region that we know about. And so the only real development, again, and there may be things we don't see, there are lots of things we don't see, but the big developments this week politically for Donald Trump are the number 8. That's the number of Americans, 8%, that support sending ground troops into Iran. Laura Ingraham basically questioning his mental fitness, saying she's not sure if he can, quote, take in information that's been briefed to him on the nation of Iran or the war plan. Alex Jones, another high-profile members of the MAGA coalition. And again, I didn't assemble this political coalition. He did. But they're in it, and they are calling him basically mentally unfit to run a war.
Yeah, well, I think part of what's happened, Nicole, and it accounts for this address tonight, is Donald Trump has started something that is so big that he cannot obfuscate or lie his way through it. He's tried that. You know, he started a war for no clear reason, for no clear objective that he could articulate. We've heard shifting objectives, but then we've heard him try to say, you know, the war's already won, or the war's about to end soon, or when the oil prices go up, gas prices go up, he tries to jawbone the market. So we're in some negotiation, the war's about to end. But this is a war, and Donald Trump isn't the only one who gets a vote here. And the reality that all Americans can see and feel is that the Iranians are continuing to control the Strait of Hormuz and run it like a toll road, that energy prices are soaring and Donald Trump's statements can't bring them down, that there's chaos across the region as Iran lashes out and as Israel invades Lebanon, that we have a number of U.S. bases that no longer are operational because of these attacks. We've lost service members. And so he's been losing control of the one thing that he likes to dominate, which is the news cycle and the narrative. And so we'll see tonight what rabbit he tries to pull out of a hat. But I completely agree with Paul. I mean, he doesn't have a strategy because he doesn't even know what he's trying to achieve inside of Iran. And he doesn't have public support for whatever it is that he and Bibi Netanyahu are doing inside of Iran. And so there's a limitation, frankly, on how much he can talk his way through this.
I mean, Alex, what is your understanding of their current rationale for what we are doing? I mean, so they'll say things like the Ayatollah was terrible. The Ayatollah has been replaced by the Ayatollah's more terrible son.
Yeah, who's younger.
The nuclear program is not something that Marco Rubio has ever talked about publicly. I don't know what he's saying privately, but it's all about the Navy and missile launchers. So the idea that we are sitting here and wondering, is he going to say something about sending troops in to remove the uranium? That is not a thing that they've been talking about as an explanation for why we've been there for 33 days.
You know, if you were unlucky enough to be on the White House press office mailing list, you would have gotten a fact sheet like a couple minutes ago. It's now, time is fluid in my mind, but like maybe an hour ago, where they're trying to, Nicole, on day 33, outline the objective of this war. It is, first of all,
What's on the sheet? I'm curious.
It's the decimation of Iranians' naval capabilities, the decimation of their military. It's a shifting series of explanations. But what it points to is that if you are still trying to explain why you're going to war 33 days into the war, you're losing. Mm-hmm. And this is all spin. I mean, whatever he does tonight, and it is appalling to me that sending American troops to war would be part of spin maneuvering. But I believe that's what it is. It's a person who's backed into the corner and feels like such a colossal loser that he's got to do something about it. Not because sending American troops to war is what is in the best interest of our country or our security, but because he wants to get out of the K-hole he's in, spiraling down with rising gas prices and becoming the butt of the global community jokes. I mean, he has empowered the Chinese. He's made it easier to sell Russian oil. He's putting more money in the pocket of the very regime that he says he's there to oust. I mean,
he has given them control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, it is theirs to control. As Ben said, they are emerging more powerful than they were before the start of this. And America, in the meantime, has seen a diminishment of its standing, and it is lashing out at its allies and causing them to circle the wagons and say, you know, maybe we just really don't need you anymore. It is a fail on every single level.